Hello team and welcome back to another Line Warcast. This is your map today. It's a 1v1 between El Mexican in blue and Plant Block in red. Mexican's going to be spawning in this position. As mentioned, this is the map, so it's like one big landmass really. There's a trade route on the bottom right. We'll see if the water comes into play at all. The places that Plant Block could spawn are in the red locations. Probably see either bottom left or top right, and it is top right from Plant Block. So red's a little bit boxed in here. Blue has more access to the central part of the map, which is a huge advantage for blue, especially the longer that this game goes on. 3 factories and 1 barracks from Mexican, and no buildings as of yet for Plant Block. Both players know exactly where the other one spawned. We can see that this is Plant Block's vision, so the 3 factories are detected for red. The 2 barracks in the back are not. These blue lines are move commands for the red infantry. And it's 4 barracks to start with Plant Block, who's taking on a fight on the top left of the screen. Infantry and forests get that 20% attack and defense bonus, which is coming in huge in this sort of situation because the units that are fighting in the forest are getting a little bit of that bonus and trading a little bit better. Red's decided to jump on top of these 3 factories. If red can destroy some of these factories before losing all of this infantry, this is probably worth it. This is going to be a pretty heavy loss of red infantry. They will take out the factory, but it might cost every single one of the red units. Some more red infantry kind of heading towards that target command. Plant Block will back up at this point after taking out the 1 factory. Someone better at unit math in the comments is going to be able to tell me whether that was actually worth it or not. I think it probably... I mean, I would be pretty happy if I was red to take out a factory and only lose that many units. It's now going to be 7 barracks I can count for red, 3 barracks for blue, and 2 factories, which very importantly for Mexican are going for artillery pieces, which are very good against red infantry. Infantry of all colors, of course, but in this situation it's going to be against red in the forest. And slowly Mexican's going to be able to start pushing forward with what is going to be very quickly 6 and then 8 artillery pieces. We play Mexican a decent amount on ladder, so there's going to be a lot of commandos from blue, probably. This is usually what I find playing against Mexican. The commandos are difficult to deal with because they're added stealth. And now at this point, if we take a zoom out sort of thing, Mexican clearly with the advantage to cap the central part of the map. And Plant Block's gonna be gonna have to go around these artillery pieces. There's not really enough red infantry to be able to jump on this quite yet. Good move from red down in the bottom of the screen, taking on this barracks. Now a target command from the infantry. There's some blue commandos and blue infantry that are going to try to stop this, but it's not going to be in time, so Mexican will lose another barracks. And here come the red infantry forward, trying to jump on top of these blue artillery pieces. When it's just infantry right on top of artillery pieces and there's no meat shield to protect the artillery, the infantry can get really good trades here. So Plant Block probably going to take out at least 2 of these artillery pieces, maybe even 3. And now it's the full 7 barracks, with the exception of one of the barracks is kind of sending some units off to the right to start capping. But very good push from Plant Block, who's caught all the artillery pieces. There's only 2 more that aren't in the fight that are still alive. 2 more artillery pieces pop out of these factories, and Mexican rebuilds one of the barracks very close to the front line, which will be a very tempting target for Plant Block to jump on. And that looks like what the plan is for red. Moving through this forest, or this mountain range part of me, is going to be very difficult. The red infantry is going to slow down considerably once they get into this mountain range, which will let these blue artillery pieces get more shots off. And unfortunately for red, this blue barracks will probably not fall. It's going to be close. The building itself does finish, starts building an infantry. And now a target command from plant block, showing the commitment to try to take down this barracks, which may actually work at this point, but the amount of units that red is going to lose trying to do this is pretty substantial this time. The good thing for plant block is that it is 7 barracks that are able to feed reinforcements into this. But the unfortunate thing is that I suppose like Mexican's only got one group of infantry capping off screen, but that is still more than plant block's able to cap. So blue likely with the eco advantage, 320 for red, 360 for blue. So not a huge advantage. But over time, it will likely change. These infantry are capping through mostly open fields. Plant block's infantry have to go through these mountain ranges to get to the open field territories. There is a lot of economy on the right-hand side for red. But what will be important is how well plant block can get out of this top right position and start moving into the top left part of the map. There's going to be a sizable number of infantry that are going to go do that, and then they'll be able to cap. Probably even take away this territory from Mexican, which is always nice, taking away economy from your opponent and then taking it yourself. And a little bit of a slowdown in this game. Mexican's content to just dig in at the base of this mountain and building a 4th barracks. There's one commando now in the mountain range. You can see the Mexican's just going to move command this to the town, which likely indicates that Mexican thinks that there could be a town built here from plant block. Blue doesn't necessarily know that red's just gone for 7 barracks and wouldn't be able to afford this town. And certainly didn't build it to start the game. Cost 300 to build a town, so plant block nearly has that. You can see just how little money red is making at +5 over time, and then Mexican's making +78 per minute. This is a great move from plant block, though. It's enough infantry that Mexican really has to take this seriously. This is the movement of artillery pieces. And 7 barracks builds a lot of infantry pretty quick. But the question is it going to be enough for red to jump, like grab a bunch of infantry here, pool them up, and then actually try to take on entrenched artillery pieces, which are that much stronger than just artillery pieces, obviously, on an attack move command. Rather like an attack line. Since this is line war, folks, you don't micro the units individually. Very slowly, plant block is building up enough infantry here. They're going to move command within range of these artillery pieces. And now here they come forward. First commando for Mexican gets picked off by plant block, who also has a red commando over here to be able to do the spotting, which is a super good play. In order to counter commandos, you first have to see those commandos. Like, we can look at plant block's vision right now. The commandos are in view just because of all these buildings and all these units here. And the first entrenchment is nearly dealt with. Plant block's now taking a little bit of fire from this top part of the picture. And this is where this one infantry kind of makes these 3 artillery pieces derp out for Mexican, so they had to reset. Now they're back in the fight. Very unlikely that red's going to be able to break through here. But there might be more success on this side, and there's still a lot of infantry here for plant block. Mexicans actually started turning around with these 4 infantry. And now there's 1 red commando in the back. Very close game, I would say. Eco-wise, 390 for red and 390 for Mexican. So look at that. Identical economy 12 minutes into the game. All 3 of these artillery pieces in the north will fall. Mexican's going to start counter-pushing. Probably judging that plant block lost enough infantry there that blue can actually safely start pushing here. It'll be close. It's still 7 barracks that plant block has, which replenish this army super quickly. And there's no real meat shield at all for these blue artillery pieces. It is 7 blue artillery pieces, though, so it's something that red has to kind of time correctly. As the blue artillery pieces get closer to red's base, there's not really more opportunities for plant block to kind of reset, rebuild, and then push again. So red has to be careful. And now, unfortunately for plant block, a lot of these red infantry are getting taken out from these 2 back barracks from Mohican. Blue's trying to dig in the forest. This would be really strong if Mohican's able to get situated here. But we'll probably expect to see plant block rush forward before the artillery pieces are able to dig in and get all those bonuses. In the mountains, this is a very important fight. Plant block wins and has 5 commandos. These are pretty close to these buildings, which are relatively undefended because the artillery pieces are out in the forest here, taking a very aggressive position. The amount of artillery on the left-hand side for Mohican is going to be able to stand. The ones on the right-hand side are going to get taken out, and they, as we see here. But it's the power of 7 barracks for plant block to be able to keep going at this. And big picture, there's 1 commando behind enemy lines, capping a position, and 1 infantry for plant block trying to cap to the north. Pretty good progress from red. But it's of course going to be difficult to just push through the mountains again like we saw earlier. And Mohican still with the factory advantage. Town on the way now for plant block, who certainly has lost the momentum behind enemy lines, and Mohican's got this 1 barracks that is starting to try to cap back. And luckily for blue, they spot most of these commandos. Because in a different universe, plant block would be able to just get by and then snipe this 1 barracks. But a pretty tense moment for Mohican. There's really only these 3 artillery pieces. There's about to be a 4th one in the mountain range. But if red could destroy these 3 artillery pieces and take out both the factories, then I believe in a lot of ways this game, you'd never want to say it's over in line war, but it would be a great position for red. Another barracks for Mohican. Still 3 commandos trying to make their way out of that situation for red. And now this is the big moment. Plant block's going to win this 1v1 with this commando because Mohican can't see this commando. There's only 1 infantry close enough. And you generally need 3 units in order to see a commando. Less, of course, if you have your own commandos because they have that improved detection quality about them. So the barracks goes down, and it can no longer be there to soak a lot of this damage from the red infantry, and this 1 artillery piece pops at the perfect time. And this is really the fight that matters. Because as we can see, plant block is deciding to go for it and continuing to send in these reinforcements. There's no grouping again. It's just going to be 7 barracks pushing towards these factories for blue. There's this 8th barracks, pardon me, on the way for plant block, and the town is probably about 2/3 of the way done. Mohican's got control in the back here. There's still just these 3 commandos, but blue's doing a great job to finish this off and make sure to continue tracking down these red units. And now the push kind of dries up. 4 barracks and 2 factories in the mountain range. It's such a strong thing in line war, like the geography of maps, fighting in mountain ranges, and obviously defender's advantage. Another barracks for Mohican, who nearly has just as many barracks spread out amongst the map as plant block does in this starting position. The town is now finished for red, though. 450 economy for blue, 465 for red, who has two sort of squads capping to the right-hand side of the map. It is technically just 3 infantry in both groups, and 4 would be, you know, the general amount of units you want to be capping. And here comes another push. 8th barracks is now complete for plant block. And this one commando is actually doing a great job because it is pulling some of these blue commandos over, at least for the moment, which allows these red infantry to get on top of their artillery more easily. 2 of their artillery pieces aren't really quite in the mountain range. And this may be enough red infantry to finally push through this time. It's a very quick port from plant block after this town completes. And very, very quickly zooming out. This is what it looks like. Mohican hasn't been able to cap to the north, which is a huge deal. Plant block's done a good job of making it so that Mohican can't really commit a bunch of infantry to start capping to the north. They have all had to go forward to defend against these pushes. And this is the part of the fight that we've seen happen multiple times, where red has been able to clear out the forest, but then struggles to get through the mountain range. It is blue-controlled territory, which is important. It means that these red infantry move even more slowly than they would in like a neutral mountain range or a mountain range that they have control over. Mohican's got the, I think, the right idea with this group of infantry ready to jump on the producers, which has the intended effect of making a bunch of this red infantry now head over to the west instead of continuing to reinforce this fight. And the strength of artillery at the, you know, back end of a mountain range in full effect. There's a chance that plant block's going to be able to get one more artillery piece, but certainly won't be able to break this position quite yet. And there's no more red units to the west of the map. 503 income for red, 500 for blue. We heard another town go down. It's in the top right for red. And now 5 artillery pieces for Mohican are complete. Artillery pieces 6 and 7 are on their way. Plant block does push out this aggression on the west of their base. It's these 2 factories, rather, pardon me, 3 barracks for blue are kind of feeding into this fight. And then 8 barracks, obviously, for red. The next thing we're going to see in this game is a large group of blue artillery probably push forward into the mountain range. And then we'll see if red can defend it. There's a dot of infantry that Mohican is setting up, probably as the fodder units to defend these artillery pieces once red decides to jump on them. And there's nothing else to say, really. It's a wonderfully visual game. You can kind of tell what's going on. Plant block wants to get to the west, break out of this position if they can, and then also defend against these blue artillery pieces. Then I think red is again in a good position off of these 2 towns. Mohican is capping, though, with 1 full squad of infantry and commandos. And plant block's going to win this fight over time, but there's not really much at home to defend against their artillery pieces. It is all commandos out of these barracks, which is good, but generally, like, won't be as good to take on just a straight up fight against artillery pieces. All these red commandos are detected. This is Mohican's vision, so I guess I'm totally wrong. The commandos, I'm shocked that they're really not spotted. I guess that's like the detection range of artillery pieces isn't that great. Now they come into view. Once they're detected, they're not nearly as effective in a lot of ways. And this is a lot of blue artillery. Plant Block wins this fight as expected. But importantly, blue is able to send 4 barracks off to kind of defend against this. And blue can do that because these artillery pieces are doing such a great job. There's no massive red units, so no real risk of these artillery pieces getting jumped on. And a 3rd factory now for Mohican. First factory for Plant Block is on the way. But it's a tough situation for red. Eco-wise, 560 for Mohican. 568 for Plant Block. And now blue's even setting up a little bit of a flank, sending some commandos towards this town. And I don't think there's really any way that red's going to be able to defend against these artillery pieces. And it's huge in this game that Mohican was able to lock this down instead of having all of that red infantry potentially capping to the north or taking all this territory in the back. Which very likely would have changed the way that this game goes. Handful of commandos aren't going to be able to do it. First artillery piece is on the way for Plant Block. It will maybe get into this fight, but certainly once this 3rd factory is done for blue, it's very difficult for Plant Block to be able to deal with this many artillery pieces. There's no airport for red. There's no reason for Mohican to change this from going artillery. No reason to build SAMs or something. So it can just be all artillery pieces out of 3 factories. And certainly horrible news for red that these 2 commandos are on top of the town. GG. Well played both. I personally like those games where it's close spawns. Seeing the terrain come into effect. When I play on ladder, twitch.tv/SodaQuackers self-plug, you know, I struggle in those games. They're interesting chess matches. Income-wise, very close. Well played both. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for the support. Hope you have a wonderful night, day, evening, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it is, wherever you are. We'll see you around. Peace.